And we're back. And if you're joining us right now, we're just getting into our first conversation for this morning. As we said before the break, we are going to be speaking with some teachers to hear some perspectives as one, the protests have commenced by the Belize National Teachers Union, and the government is still proposing its 10% salary cut to all public officers. And we're going to be hearing from some people who will be directly affected by whatever the government does. And so joining us for this morning's conversation, we have Miguel Bonilla, who is a teacher from Mount Carmel High School, as well as Amilcar Vasquez, who is a teacher from Victorious Nazarene in San Jose Socots. Good morning, gentlemen.
Hello, good morning. Thank you for having us.
Right. Yes, thank you.
And thank you for joining us. We do appreciate you coming in to share your perspective. We can start with a little bit of introductions. Miguel, you've been on our show before, but perhaps you can let us know what your position is today in relation to some of the issues which we've seen, and now that we are well into the BNTU's strike.
Okay, thank you for having me once more. In regards to what you're asking, what is my position? My position has not changed from the last time I was on your show, which is, okay, we are willing and open to negotiations, given certain conditions are met. That is practically the banner for all of us. So, and that is my position. And I think that it is important that people know that we are willing to sacrifice. I mean, I want to start with that. We are willing to sacrifice. We're not being selfish. We also think about the economy. We are willing. However, there are certain things that need to be in place in order to prevent this from happening again to us and to our children. That's practically my position.
And for you, Amilcar?
Yes, I would like to more or less echo what Miguel has said. Before anything, I would just like to state that whatever I share is my personal view and not necessarily those of the union.
Yes.
We have seen the political mischief that has been brewed by some media houses. We know not like that, right? But we just want to put it out there. We have seen what's going on. And I stand by my union 110%. Sometimes there are decisions that are made that do not necessarily reflect our flavor of conviction. But we stand because we know that collectively we have bargaining power beyond that of what I would be able to do on myself, just myself. So my stance is we will strike as long as we need to. We will stand firm. And the government is playing a hardball position. They're out there saying that they have given us compensation, and we know not of any such thing. They haven't come they haven't been honest with the public or with the teachers. So I would like to say that I stand 110% until it is necessary.
Amilcar, you brought up something which is interesting, and I think that it relates to perhaps what the varying positions might be from within the union itself, because we often hear directly from the leadership, and of course we see teachers or whoever marching in solidarity, but as you said just now, there may be some varying positions. What is it like when you speak with your fellow colleagues and in relation to all that's going on? What is the general feeling, and what are sort of the differences that some people might have?
Yes, I think Mike wants to share something, so I'll just give him the go ahead there.
Okay, my apologies. Certainly, I think that what you're saying is true. There will be variation within every institution. There will never be 100% consensus on anything. And certainly there is variation. But the central message is this, and all the members resonate with this message. We are in this situation because of malpractices in past administrations for the past 40 years. We want to change that, not only for ourselves, but for the benefit of our children and the benefit of that child who is the son of the tour guide who is going to school and thinking that he will make a better future by studying. We want to defend that, and that is a unified position among all the members. It is not something, of course, there will be variations of opinion, but the central message is very, very clear. So that is something that I would like to bring up. I know Amilcar was going to say that.
But Miguel, let me ask you something. You definitely came to the attention of the public when you made the decision to explain the breakdown of the impact of the increment freeze. Now, when you look at what is currently being, what is the message coming out from government, explaining the financial situation, and as you said very clearly, there are varying opinions across even the public service and the unions as to how you should move forward. We've heard people say absolutely no cut, and we've heard others say we want something that we want to have the good governance practices in case, then we'll look at the wage cut. For you, have you worked out a number that you're comfortable with?
I actually have not worked out a number that I am comfortable with. The reason is very simple. I cannot come up with a number of what I am willing. I can give up all my salary, but that will be futile if we don't have the necessary legislation, because what will prevent this government and future government, I'm not accusing this government, so please, that's a disclaimer there. I'm not accusing this government. What will prevent that money that I give up from being squandered? There's nothing much in place to say, okay, these laws will prevent your money. Now, going back to what you're saying, what would be a number that I'm willing to give up? That will depend on the government's position also. How far are they going to go with good governance? Am I willing to invest? Because I see this as an investment. And I am willing to invest, but there needs to be something in place that will give me the assurances that, yes, this is a good investment. So I don't really have a number. But certainly that is my message.
Gentlemen, you...
Amilcar?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Amilcar, you want to share in there?
I think we're more or less on the same page here. I think there's something that's being misconstrued as to the position of teachers, and that is that we're selfish. We keep hearing this, oh, teachers are selfish. They're just thinking about their money. But let me tell you this. In the current environment, in the current cauldron or hotbed of corruption that is our government system, and I think Miguel made it very clear, it's not one political party or the next, it's the current system of government that we have that's weak. Nobody is willing to give anything. It's 0%. If you ask me about the number that we're comfortable with right now, it's 0%, simply because there's no structure that will assure us that drop in the bucket won't leak out and be something that will just be invested in corruption. That's what we're seeing. That's what we have seen. I don't want to feign ignorance from one party to the next. They take advantage of the system. But at the end of the day, we the people of Belize have to demand that there is good governance, that there is transparency in all sectors. So until there isn't good governance all around, the number will simply remain 0%.
Now, there are people who do who are following the situation, who are very much upset at the stance that the unions have taken. We've heard the stories countless times. The people within the tourism sector, the tens of thousands of people who've lost their job during COVID, the private sector workers who weren't consulted and have given up some people as much as half of their pay, and they're still working at half pay. These are people who are watching the teachers, the unions, I should say, stand up against a 10% cut, and they said, we gave up last year, it's your turn as well. How do you respond to people like that?
Okay.
Let me give a little insight there, Mike. I have a very good example. My mom is a former teacher and my dad is a former tour guide. And I have seen both sides of the, even though they're retired, they still have that love for what they did. And basically, what I can tell you is this, Marlene, that Belizean society needs to stop looking at, I take my lick, so you take your lick too. That is what they're saying, and it's not that we're not considerate of them. What is going on is that they're asking us to give up this 10% because they believe that will help the economy in some way or the name. Man, make I tell you something, that will not help the economy as it is, Marlene. What's going to happen is that this will continue to fuel cronyism, corruption, the largesse that these government ministers and CEOs are living. That is what is going to fuel. If they would tell me, here what, Amilcar, give you 10%, at that going to some poor family, that's going to some poor tour guide that lost his job, perfect. But that is not going to happen. So Belize, this is not going to happen. You will not see one penny of that money. You will not. And I know that the minister yesterday and in Open Your Eyes said that, it's not for that, it's for debt payment. Man, it's not even for debt payment. Believe you me, they have their ways and means to just divert that money, make it leak the bucket into rocky soil, and nothing, absolutely nothing grows in that rocky soil that is our current form of government.
Now, that's one of the part of the conversation that we did have with the minister yesterday. And I hear from both of you this idea of this mistrust that exists in very clearly what you've said before, the systems of government. It doesn't matter what political party is represented. Now, it's only been a few months since this particular administration has been in power. So their point is, well, give us some time to prove that you can trust us. You can't judge them by what has happened over the past decades.
And sorry, just to add to what Marlene said, I think the Attorney General did even say that the government did hear what the unions were saying and had said that, well, we can implement a lot of this legislation, but in order for us to make sure that there's all the checks and balances on whatever done, it would take probably about 6 to 8 months. So what's your response to that?
Okay, I would like to take that one. That is, I want to give the benefit of the doubt to the government, unlike a lot of people who will claim that this government is corrupt. But here is my pitch. There are signs of corruption. We are not sleeping. There's a lot of research out there being done on corruption. There are symptoms of corruption. 1, nepotism. Number 2, irregular tendering. 3, attacking perceived enemies, which apparently now it is the unions. Unreasonable procurement, refusing reform, and the list goes on and on. Now, those are the symptoms, just the same way that a really bad headache and chills and a fever is a symptom of coronavirus. We have symptoms of corruption. And I'm not accusing this government. Have we seen nepotism? I'm not going to say, okay, we have seen nepotism. Look at the news coverage on the people who got high offices. From the moment that they enter the office of government, they are already showing what they stand for. So they're showing what they stand for. And here's the thing. We saw the first week, we saw political affiliates with a lot of baggage, being hired, family members of ministers. That counts as nepotism. I'm not making it up, and that's why our honorable Prime Minister kind of slipped and said that Belize has limited talents. I understand what he meant. I understand what he meant. It was a justification for nepotism, which is a symptom of corruption. And
exactly so.
as long as we have the signs of corruption and the symptoms of corruption, it's 5 months. Obviously, I don't expect them to implement UNCAC, but at least in this month that we have been bargaining, the Whistleblower Act could have come up. The Campaign Financing Act could have come up. Why? Why am I saying this? They claim, okay, there are some corrupt public officers for this and that. But if they don't have the necessary protection for them to say, okay, I'm being bribed, and there is no system in place to prevent all of this. And the system will continue to be abused as long as we just condone it.
What about the sorry, Miguel, what about the other part of the question? I hear you wrapping up there. I'm sorry to interrupt. It's where, there's a practicality to it as well. How well can you put together legislation in such a short time that is going to be effective? If you are asked by, your principal or administrators tomorrow, produce a yearly lesson plans, and you know that in order to put forward quality work, it's not going to be possible, it's kind of the same situation that's being painted by the Attorney General Ministry. How much do you take that part into consideration?
Can I take this one, Migs?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Amilcar.
Yes, I think that we go back to the same thing, Marlene. I believe that the government is not being honest. I hear the Attorney General, and I would dare not sit down and argue with her. That is her profession, the profession of arguing. But let me tell you something. We are not reinventing the wheel. Back in 2015, we fought for this exact same thing. And for those of us that have selective memory, some of the same teachers that are here today were there fighting for the implementation or the ratification of UNCAC. Now, they're telling us, okay, well, we're just in and give us some time. No, man. That's the old story. This thing has already been enrolled. Don't tell me that they reset everything when they go into government 5 months in. That is not so. The structures that need be for this legislation is already there. And we know, Marlene, because we are very active within our unions. We're very active within BNTU and how they have been going. So they have more than they say they have. And they're just saying this because they want to drag their feet on something that should have happened 10 years ago.
So your opinion is that it's deliberate. That's how you feel.
Yes, because this has been rolling way beforehand, and you guys have covered it. You know that they don't reset the legislation. And let me tell you this: when governments come in and they really need to make legislation happen, it happens. They just come in one day and the next day they don't change it. It happens. So, they know how to do it. They're just not wanting to do it.
I think you pointed out that there has been strike action by the teachers before, particularly with a good governance mandate. We go back to 2016. It was a historic 11-day protest, and there was actually a point where you had to sacrifice your salaries to be able to proceed with your protests. Do you feel from your colleagues that same level of commitment is there? The union president said yesterday that it is, but in this time where what your salary is more important than it's ever been, do you think that teachers are going to stick this through, even if it comes down to having their pay docked?
Well, personally, I believe they will. There are always those that fall on the road. It's inevitable. This is a war. Some soldiers will fall. But I think the mass of what is teachers of membership of BNTU will continue. There are those that prefer not to be members. They have their right. Those that prefer to stay at school, they also have their right. But the core of those that start will finish. And I think and that's another erroneous point of view that the public has sometimes, that teachers are not willing to sacrifice. But we have sacrificed. We know sacrifice, and we will continue to sacrifice if need be. And if the government wants to take the salary away, or try to strong arm the managements to take it, because legally speaking they don't have the go ahead to do so, they would have to strong arm management, then they can do that. But we will stand until the position changes, because they want to play hardball, yet say, oh, well, unions, give we one chance, we'll just come in, make we show where we got up. But they are not doing the same with us. That's the problem. They want us to understand them, but they don't want to understand us.
What about the public buy-in? And Miguel, I want to hear this one from you. There's a big difference between 2016 and 2021. We are now looking at children being out of school for an entire year. Parents have additional responsibilities to ensure that whatever work is put together by the teachers is actually done by the children in their homes. On an average day, if you have a strike action, parents have to scramble to figure out what to do with their children during that time. And that usually becomes a part of what feeds into the momentum of the strike. Parents start complaining, they want a resolution, they want to have to stop figuring out what to do with their children. But this time around, that's not going to happen. They have already figured out a solution for over a year. How do you think this will impact the public buy-in?
Okay, well, I think that one of the key things that we need to do as teachers is do what we do best. We need to educate the public, because at the end of the day, yes, sure, it is our salary. And I'll tell you something, I am the son of a taxi driver, I've said this, and a loving housewife. We used to eat tortilla and beans Monday to Sunday. I will survive a salary cut if it is cut. But I'll tell you something, this will have ripple effects on them. The construction worker who generally comes over, he will no longer have a job. The tacos vendor I buy tacos from will also not have a job. Well, she will have a job, but then she will also be receiving the cut if I'm unable to buy all of this. So the first thing is we need to educate the public. It's not about buying, it is standing for what is right. In addition, to answer your question, will the public support this? Because teachers are on strike and they're not sending work. There is a big picture. There is something in pedagogy that we study, and it's called the hidden curriculum. And those are the values that we instill into the young generation. And the value that we are trying to instill in this young generation today, even if the old one is unable to understand it at this point, is that we must fight. We must not be trampled upon by anyone. We need to stand up for our rights, and we need to stand up for our country. And if parents don't need to buy this, it is the reality of the situation. If they support, we will be super happy about it. If not, we will have to do a better job at educating them.
Yeah.
And in a similar vein, speaking about the public buy-in, how do you respond to some people who might be saying that, and that not just teachers, all the unions, that right now the unions are actually being sort of obstructionist, and that they're really holding the government back, because we've seen both in the general elections and the recent municipal elections that it seems that as though the current administration does have a large amount of public support. And there are some who have said that, well, what the unions are doing right now is really holding them back from implementing the plans, especially in the context of the economic sort of devastation that COVID-19 has caused. And that, so to say that, well, the government needs to do what is necessary, but the unions are holding them back. How do you respond to that sort of a criticism?
Okay, so this is a sacrifice. This is certainly, yeah, it might seem that we are holding the economy back. That's how it seems. And I am not blind to it. That's how it seems. But the bigger picture is that it is better to pull the Band-Aid right now. It will hurt a little bit right now, rather than having my child. I learned this after having my first child. I don't want him and my future child to be passing the same thing, the same tragedy that we're passing through. So this is certainly a two-way street. It might seem that we are stopping the economy, but this is to obtain the assurances, the legislation that is needed to prevent this from happening in the first place. And this is not supposed to happen again if we are successful. Now, are we holding the economy? Like I said, we are willing to sacrifice with the necessary assurances of good governance. I don't know if Amilcar has something to add.
Yes, I just wanted to add, I also heard the minister say yesterday that Plan Belize is not being rolled out because these things need to be solved first. So to begin with, Plan Belize is not happening. It is not happening. And if you look at the main points that they mentioned that would be happening, it's not happening. The public needs to wake up. Secondly, there is what I call a cancer within our society, and that's political partisanship. I believe that some of those people that say they do not support this belief, that simply because they believe we are assaulting their party. And I would like to say this, and I would like to take educators on a whole here. There's a lot of educators that voted for change this year. If not, there wouldn't have happened. Change would not have happened if educators would not have voted for change. However, we are seeing beyond this political partisanship that is the ill of our Belizean society. And we're saying this, guys, we may have voted for this party or the next, but when it comes to stand for what is correct, for what is good governance, we need to stand now, and we need to stand as a society. Belizeans need to stand with their teachers this time. They need as much trust as they have put in the government. We need that kind of trust to be able to negotiate a future for our children. What they're trying to do is, this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to take 10% away, and cut the purchasing power of the teacher, which then cuts the purchasing power of society. Now, you don't need to be you don't need to have a master's degree in economy to be able to see that cutting the purchasing power is not a way to relieve the economy. It's going to go downhill. But they are trying to sell us this idea. You know why? Because this is the low-lying fruit. Because this is what they feel is easier for them.
Let me
but
ask.
They made a mistake. It's not as easy as they think.
Yeah. We're running out of time so quickly, so I want to get this particular question in. There are no easy solutions to this issue. And I think that's one that from the outside looking in, we can see. The economy is in a dire state. The continuous borrowing is unsustainable. And on the other side, we know that the teachers are looking out, one, for each other, those who they know can't afford. And secondly, I don't think anyone ever argues with the idea of implementation of legislation or policies that will ensure good governance. But there has to be a way forward. And this is, of course, not a union representative who I'm asking this to. I'm asking individual teachers. If there's one good faith thing that you could see be done, just one, if in the essence of compromise, that you could see be executed within the next week, or a commitment to be done sooner rather than later, what would that be?
Okay, so that's me. Okay, I think, well, in my personal opinion, I think that, like Amilcar said a while ago, in good faith, enact legislation. I mean, if you want teachers on your side, I want to say two things actually. Enact the legislation quickly enough. Probably you can get it done in a week. You spent 13 years in the wardrobe. per se, enact legislation, a very simple legislation that is able to pass rather easily, like the Whistleblower Act or the Campaign Financing Act, and you will have much more support when it comes to negotiating and obtaining some sort of compromise from us. And also the second thing, stop smearing the unions. It does not help. You're just inflaming the situation. If you inflame the situation, people will close their minds. They will not respond positively. So two things: enact legislation that is simple to pass. Commit to uncap for a later term. That's fine. But please stop smearing. I mean, it doesn't bode well
it's
for
ridiculous.
I do agree. Well, gentlemen, we are out of time, and it was really important for us to be able to expand perspectives. We do talk to union leaders, but we do want to hear from teachers individually as well. So thank you for sharing your perspective, and of course, stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you
for having us. Have a blessed day.
You too. All right, with that, we are going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we'll be talking about life-saving checkups and procedures through the Gift of Life program by Rotary. We'll be getting into that in just a few, so stay tuned.